Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Podcast Stories, where today, my daughter dropped out of college years ago, but now she's 25, going back to school and demanding I pay her tuition. My ex and I divorced 23 years ago because we disagreed a lot about priorities. I'll just say right away that I worked maybe too much in the beginning of my marriage. My career is very prestigious, and I worked hard to get to where I am today. Anyway, our daughter, Cassie, lived with my ex and stayed with me on the weekends. I paid child support, and I gave Cassie everything she could ever need or want. Newest clothes, electronics, instruments, trips, you name it, she had it. As she got older, I tried to teach her lessons about work ethic, good education, and a meaningful and lucrative career. Cassie is brilliant and could go Ivy if she wanted to. When she started applying for colleges, her mother guilted her into remaining in-state. I didn't want her to settle, but I liked the idea of saving a few grand. 2 years in, Cassie started to gradually drop out. I say gradually because she went from 18 credits and on the dean's list every semester to 12 credits, then 6, and failing biology and math. It just didn't make sense. Eventually, she told me she couldn't do school anymore and just wanted to work and make her own money. What teenager doesn't want a free ride with no cares? I was paying for everything. All she had to do was study. After a screaming match, we stopped communicating for a period of time. Then just last week, she calls me out of the blue and tells me that she lives on her own now on the other side of the country. She and my ex are no contact now. She tells me that she's ready to go back to school, but would need me to pay. Heck no, I'm not an ATM, and she's 25 now. It's not really my responsibility anymore. My wife thinks I'm the jerk, and my daughter does too. So just to summarize, you threw money at your kid to avoid putting in time, effort, or care into raising her, and you thought that made up for your lack of love? You ditched her because she wanted to get a job, and now you're complaining she didn't work hard enough, in spite of her supporting herself for 5 years? You think she should have completed her studies, but you're not willing to help her do so unless the help required involves zero actual effort from you? You think your parenting over the last 5 years was adequate? You simultaneously believe your daughter has her own mind and was influenced by her mother? You're upset that your daughter treats you like an ATM when that's the only relationship you've troubled yourself to build with her thus far. She's been raised to take your money in lieu of love from you. She reached out to rebuild the only connection she's ever had with you, and you declined it. Newsflash, being a parent is never not your responsibility. Taking some financial responsibility for your 25-year-old is pretty common for parents who can afford to do so these days, even if your legal requirement to pay has ended. But in your case, the money spent earlier was so far below the bare minimum parenting requirement to make you even halfway adequate during her childhood and early adulthood that your moral obligation to the stranger you should have been raising has not really ended. You're the jerk. You have had, and missed, plenty of opportunities to be a real parent. Time to step up and do what you can to fix this. I think you're the jerk as well. Sounds like your ex was toxic towards her, and she must have really struggled growing up, and she couldn't handle college because she had a lot of issues. You only saw your daughter on weekends, and I'm guessing that with life and her becoming a teenager, it wasn't every weekend. How could you think you could have taught her anything with so little time while still giving her everything she wanted? Your daughter dropped out after 2 years, so she was around 20 years old. You stopped talking then, and she's now 25. 5 years without talking to your daughter. Weren't you worried? Didn't you care? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his daughter? Please let us know. I know we're gonna lose tons of subscribers for this, but I'm sorry, I just don't feel like parents owe their kids a college education. I never in a million years would have asked my parents to spend the huge amounts of money that these kids expect from their parents to go to college. I just don't get it, Reddit boy, I just don't understand. Come on, Karen, haven't you spent enough time on Reddit to know that everything in life should be handed to us and we shouldn't have to work for anything? Oh, I hate you so much, Reddit boy. Am I the jerk for lashing out at my family for calling my fiancée my second wife? Years ago, I was married to a close friend. We were roommates, adopted a dog together, and lived together since college until our mid to late 20s, married at 24 and 25. However, we were never actually romantically involved. She was not interested in marriage and was also questioning herself at the time, but her family was ultra-traditional and messy for many other reasons and kept pushing her to settle down. I had just gotten out of a rough long-term relationship, and we kind of both just said, oh well, we basically were kind of living like a married couple. Let's get married for convenience. So we did the paperwork for it, but we never had a wedding. We were also never romantically involved. She was just not my type and I was not hers. My family knew she wasn't my wife in the traditional sense. They did heavily disapprove though. When I started getting back into the dating scene, we split up and legally divorced. She remains one of my close friends to this very day and I care for her a lot. It's been a few years and I'm now 32 with a lovely fiance who I can't wait to marry. However, ever since I announced the engagement, my family has been making weird comments like, "Oh, so Roxy, my dog, is getting a new stepmom. Wife number 2 at 32, huh? That's a lot of wives for your age. Let's hope this second one lasts." It makes both me and my fiance uncomfortable. I keep on saying that my close friend wasn't really my wife in the traditional sense, but my family brushes me off by saying that they're just joking, or she's technically my second wife anyway, so it's not like they're wrong. Today at breakfast though, I blew up at them, and I called them disrespectful and rude for belittling my relationship. My mom and my sister both said that if I didn't want to hear these statements, I shouldn't have married my close friend. I threatened to not invite them to the wedding, and now things are super tense. Am I the jerk? Some edits from the comments I made to help answer some common questions. Why I married my close friend. Health insurance, mostly, but also because they kept holding her tuition over her head. We were both in grad school at the time. She was going for a PhD, I was going for a master's, but I had a job in an energy commission with some benefits. They'd always tell her that they had stopped sending her money, or, some months when the arguing was bad, not send her money at all. They used money to punish her basically. She had a lot of health issues at the time that she couldn't get help for, like chronic pain and wisdom teeth that really needed to be removed, alongside some other personal issues. So getting married got them off her back about herself, got her on my health insurance plan, and got them to be more consistent on sending tuition money for her. There were a few other reasons too, like how they kept setting up potential arranged marriages for her or threatening to take her home to their country. There was also a time where they threatened to have her committed to a mental health facility. At the time, she was also really reluctant on letting me help her beyond minor things because she felt like it was something she had to repay. So between us, it also gave me an excuse to help her. I'd be like, "Hey, it's what your spouse is supposed to do, right?" Even though we both agreed that our marriage was a farce. I think it did something for her psychologically to accept that we had a legally binding relationship where I could help her. I don't know, it was complicated, but it was something that worked for us. I was able to pay for her treatment and let her use my money for herself. She has now graduated and is financially stable. To my knowledge, she no longer speaks with most of her family. She's doing amazing for herself, and I'm so darn proud of her. My fiance, she knows about my past marriage and has no issue with it. I met her through my close friend, actually, as a mutual of a mutual. At the time, I was already split from my close friend, and she was initially confused. Me and my close friend both sat her down, and we explained things as clearly as possible. She understands why we did what we did. My family. I was always 100% transparent with my family on my marriage with my close friend. My family understood that I went through a rough relationship before my marriage. I think my mom's exact words at the time were, "I won't force you to do anything, but I'm really disappointed that you take marriage so lightly." They understood that I married my close friend to help her, but I got the slight impression that they figured everything would sort itself out with our marriage, like I would fall in love with her or something. My aunts and uncles didn't say much else than that they were disappointed that they couldn't attend a real wedding. When I met my fiance, I told them how it was a big deal to me that it was my first genuine, supportive, romantic relationship in a long time. At the time, they all seemed happy for me and no comments like these came up. They told me that they were glad I was able to find love again. It was only when we announced the engagement that these comments started. Not the jerk. I mean, technically they are correct. She is your second wife, so I guess you are a slight jerk if I only look at the title. However, if their comments make you and your wife uncomfortable and you've asked them multiple times to stop, but they're still doing it, then they're the jerks for continuing. Not the jerk. What's wrong with your family? It's none of their business who you were married to before, especially when it wasn't even a romantic relationship. Calling your fiance your second wife is disrespectful and insensitive. Your blow-up was justified, and if they can't respect your boundaries, they don't deserve to be at your wedding. Stick to your guns, my dude. You're the jerk. Married a friend out of convenience? Goodness, that's the stupidest thing I've read today. You have been married. She will be your second wife. You're the jerk. It is in fact your second marriage, so your current fiance will be your second wife. Facts are facts. If you want to be salty about it, that's on you. But your family isn't being rude or disrespectful or belittling. You need to get over yourself. Am I the jerk for telling my ex's new wife that she can't come with us on our son's college tours? My son will be a senior in high school this fall, and we've been touring colleges. We toured a few this spring and plan to tour several out-of-state ones throughout the summer. The plan was for myself, my husband, and his father to do the tours together. We'll be touring 4 schools, and he's coming to 3 of them. Some background. My son's father and I split up before our son was 6 months old. Soon after our relationship ended, I met my now husband, and we got married when my son was 3. My ex has been supportive of our relationship and thinks my husband is a great stepfather. Our co-parenting relationship has been challenging at times, but we've done just fine for the sake of our son. Last year, my ex eloped with this woman, Shelly, not her real name. They dated only for a year or so before getting married. I don't know her too well since we've only met twice, but I know she has 3 kids of her own. Her oldest is about the same age as my son. My son dislikes her. He thinks Shelly is mentally unhinged, is way too involved in his personal business, and he blames her for being the reason he hasn't been able to spend as much quality time with his father lately. Earlier this week, I was coordinating with my ex about the details of our next tour. Everything was great until he mentioned that Shelly would be coming along on all of our tours. I asked why and if it was necessary that she tag along. He said that she just wanted to be supportive. I asked him if her daughter was looking at these schools too, since she's also going to be a senior, and he said no. So why is she coming if her own kid isn't planning on attending these schools? I told him that our son should get a say in who comes to the tours and that I would ask him what he thought about Shelly joining us. After I got off the phone with my ex, I asked our son if he wanted Shelly to come with us. He immediately replied no, and that he wasn't comfortable with her coming along. I told our son that he should speak with his father and let him know about what he thinks. Fast forward to last night, my ex calls and is furious that I would get our son involved in this matter. I replied that our son is the one touring the colleges and making decisions about his future, and he gets to decide who can come along. Not to mention, our son is almost an adult and at his age is more than capable of deciding who he wants in his life and to what extent. Son has been vocal to his father about his feelings on Shelly. He accepts that his father loves her, but he doesn't see her as family. So I told my ex that if he loves his son and wants to continue having a positive relationship with him, then he needs to respect his wishes and leave his wife at home. End of story. Ex replies that I'm a jerk. Shelly cares about our son and that he should be allowed to bring his wife with him wherever he chooses. Was I the jerk? Update. First of all, thanks for the validation and for the kind words. I've read nearly everything. I'd like to emphasize for anyone who may have missed it in my original post that my son has been the main one communicating his boundaries to his dad, not me. My son is 17 and more than capable of setting and enforcing his own boundaries. Also, since some express that it's hypocritical for my husband to be there but not Shelly, let me reiterate that my son asked his stepdad to be there. And ex is fine with him being there, and it was never an issue in the first place. There's also a lot more to the story behind why my son doesn't like Shelly that I couldn't explain in my original post. If it was up to me, I'd like him to get to know her better, but I understand his reasons and I honor them. I'm certainly not pitting him against her like some of you implied. I talked to my son late last night about his father being upset with him not wanting Shelly to come along. I told him that I fully respected his choice and reminded him that he can share this experience with whomever he wants. I encouraged him to talk to his dad again, explain his feelings about the situation, and I let him know that I was happy to step in if he needs me. I also added that if he ultimately decided that he wanted to go on these tours alone or with just one parent to avoid drama, which I communicated might be the best option, but that's just my opinion and he doesn't need to consider it if he doesn't want to, then that would be okay too. It's his tour and his decisions. So he called his dad this morning and calmly told him that he didn't want Shelly coming along on any of the tours and explained his reasons, which mainly included needing time with his dad, sans Shelly, and him not wanting an entourage accompanying him on his tours. 5 is a crowd, Dad. I laughed when I heard that. This time, my ex was more receptive and told our son that he respected his feelings. But then, he put son on the spot and told him that he should talk to Shelly directly about her not coming. He was not comfortable with that and requested that I step in and talk to both his dad and Shelly. So I got on the phone and repeated that this was our son's decision. I didn't say anything about son disliking Shelly or feeling uncomfortable with her because that was besides the point. Shelly was clearly disappointed and said she understood and only wanted an opportunity to bond with her new stepson. I replied that it was sweet of her to want to get to know him better, but a college tour isn't the time nor place. Overall, she seemed to be okay with it. We spoke for another minute or two, and then she left the conversation and I talked to X for a little while. I reiterated to him that ever since Shelly came into the picture, our son feels like he doesn't get as much quality time with his dad anymore because either she's there during their entire time together or he's busy being a stepfather to her kids. Son doesn't have an issue with his step-siblings, but also I want to make sure X makes time for his own kid. I also explained to him that if Shelly not coming along was going to be this big of a deal to him, then he shouldn't come either. He said he understood where I was coming from and apologized for calling me a jerk. I asked him if it was Shelly who was pushing this issue or if it was him. Based on his response, I got the sense that Shelly expressed an interest in going, was okay not going if that was really Son's decision, but my ex just really wants her to feel more like a part of his family, so it's a mix of him appeasing her, but also wanting his son to get to know her better. So I gave him two choices. Either he comes without Shelly and uses those opportunities to have special time with his son, or he doesn't come to the tours and we find a weekend for him and son to spend one-on-one time. But either way, Shelly isn't going to be there because our son isn't interested in a relationship with her right now, and he shouldn't force it onto him. He said he'd think about his choices, so all good there. I hope he decides to leave Shelly at home and come to whatever tours he can, because I know how important it is to our son. Not the jerk. Your son is the only person who gets any say here. Not the jerk. If your ex is more concerned about Shelly's feelings than his own son's, then maybe he should stay home with her. You're the jerk. Neither you nor your son get to dictate who goes on the tours. Your husband is going, so his wife should be allowed to go, especially since both of you have been paying into the fund that will be paying for his tuition. The only reason that you've given for your son not liking his stepmother is because she wants to be involved in his life, and now that they've gotten married, he has less one-on-one time with his dad. That's what happens when people get married. I'm sure your son has less time with you one-on-one than if you were single. The only reason he resents her more than your husband is because your husband has been around since he was a kid. You should be encouraging your son to give her a chance instead of pitting him against her and riling things up. You're the jerk. You don't get to tell your ex what he does or dictate how his new wife behaves. She wants to come, maybe she's trying to be involved, that's wonderful. I get that your son feels the way he does. If he isn't saying that to his father, then empower him to say the words he needs to say. You're being the gatekeeper. You're doing your son's work. Stop parenting this way. Let your son's experience be reality, and if he can't advocate for himself, he needs to learn in small doses. Signed, kid of a mother who never gave me the tools to advocate my feelings to my father. Am I the jerk for not babysitting my ex-husband's kid? I'm 30, female. My ex-husband, who's 32, and I have two kids, who are 4 and 2. We've been divorced just about 6 months, and he's now expecting a baby with his new girlfriend. I'm admittedly not over him. We were together for 10 years, my entire adulthood. It was and is still a messy split. I'm still bitter and hurt about it, and he seems to have completely moved on somehow. When we had our oldest, neither of us wanted him in daycare. No judgment, we just didn't feel comfortable. So I stayed home and eventually started my own business that allows me to work 99% remotely. My parents are also local and retired and help me out as much as they can. This arrangement works for me, and I get to spend time with both of my kids. Now, X's girlfriend is 5 months pregnant, and they got in a huge fight because she asked him to tour daycares, and he said absolutely not. He wants her to stay home with the baby. None of his kids are to go in daycare. Admittedly, the ones here do suck. He called me to vent, and I listened, then he dropped the bomb. He asked if I would be willing to take care of their baby since I'm home with our two and get help from my parents. And when I have to take the kids to the office, I can, because I own it. He mentioned that I knew how he feels about his kids being in a daycare, and I sort of lost it on him. It was a 1.5 years of walled-up anger and hurt, and I said some nasty things that I've since apologized for. Fast forward to 3 days later. New girlfriend pulled me to the side when I dropped off my kids to their house and asked why I was so ugly about it, and why I thought my kids were better than hers, and why her baby doesn't deserve the same things mine got. I never said that, but I apologized if anything I said came off like that. I told her I'm happy for them. I'm not, but pleasantries. But I was certainly not going to babysit their kid. She's a nurse, so I get that she can't work from home and doesn't want to give up her career, but they should have thought about that. I left before it blew up again, but X called me about 2 hours later and asked me to come get the kids because he and new girlfriend were fighting and he didn't want them around for it. I picked them up, of course, and X texted me on the drive home and asked again if I would babysit for them for $200 a week. I said no, and he called me a bitter jerk and said I'm being a jerk because I'm hurt. I don't see it this way at all. I reiterated that the request is absurd and I would not be talking about it anymore. This was yesterday, and all day today, new girlfriend has been texting me and having her friends and family review bomb my business. I'm not worried about it. My clients know my work. Ex-husband hasn't said anything else, but has been shorter with me in our conversations about our kids. So, am I the jerk for refusing to keep my ex-husband's new baby? Edit/update. A few of the repeat things I've seen addressed below. It looks like Google has flagged the influx of reviews for spam, and I did call my lawyer to see what she recommends going forward. Yes, my ex was cheating with his girlfriend for some time before we divorced. I don't know how long exactly, and I don't think I want to know. I'm also a licensed professional, so going against her nursing license is a surefire way to make this worse. Lawyer will advise on how to proceed. Second, and probably final update for now. Google is removing the reviews. Wackadoodle and her idiot family all have the same last name, so it was pretty easy to see the reviews weren't genuine. The ones from her friends with different names were removed too because, again, it was poorly executed at best. X has apologized for her behavior, and apparently he is taking some time away, and she thought he was with me. I have no idea where he went after he left my house Tuesday night when the kids went to sleep. He certainly is not staying here. We have only spoken to confirm pickup and swimming lessons today. My parents have already planned to have the kids this weekend. X has a graduation to go to, and I'm going to the beach with my friends, so I don't have to worry about where they're going since X is effectively homeless right now. Not the jerk. You are never obligated to take care of someone else's kid. Also, if you haven't already provided services to her and her friends and family, send a cease and desist letter. It can be defamation. Am I the jerk for refusing to help my parents unless they pay me up front? My brother is a lawyer, and whenever he does work for my parents, they pay him and act very proud that he went to law school and made something of himself. I'm a plumber. I don't really enjoy school or basking in the glow of my younger brother, so I got an apprenticeship right out of high school, and now I have my own company. Whenever my parents call me for help, I pop over and fix whatever they have going on, and then I might stick around for a bit to catch up with them. Lately though, they've been kind of jerks. My nephew is going to college this fall, and he's probably going to become a lawyer as well. I'm proud of him. He's a good kid who's worked his butt off to get to where he is. My parents, however, have decided that they need to push my kids to be successful, unlike me. They were over a few weeks ago, and they were bugging my daughter about where she was going to study after high school and what she wanted to be. She said she wanted to go to school to be a vet tech. That wasn't good enough. She should go to university and become a veterinarian. They just kept pushing, even after she explained her reasoning. It kind of ticked me off. So we had some flooding in our area last week, and my parents needed some emergency help. I was busy because a lot of people needed emergency help, so I said no. They said I was being a jerk, not helping them out, and that my brother always made time for them. So I said that my emergency fee was this amount, and that as soon as they paid that, I would be right over. They hung up on me. Obviously, every other plumber in the area was busy, and my fee was actually still a friends and family deal. So after calling around, they found out that they would be on a wait list for days and pay more. So they paid my fee, and I went over and fixed the problem. They have been mad ever since, but I pointed out that I was a successful businessman, and that like my brother, I expected to be paid for my work. Not the jerk. People who don't respect trades are baffling to me. It sounds as if they don't really know what your work is worth. They were long overdue a rude awakening on that. You might need another difficult conversation with them about golden child and scapegoat dynamics, and how you're not going to let that dynamic happen with your daughter. Not the jerk. If they can pay the lawyer for his time, they can pay the plumber too. And the next time they push your kids, you should say, in this house, we encourage our kids to be what they want to be, and not someone else's idea of what is successful. P.S. I've needed and hired a plumber a lot more times in my life than I have a lawyer, so who's really the successful one? Am I the jerk for making my husband take the day off with our sick kid instead of me? Kiddo came home with pink eye last night. Husband didn't notice when he picked her up, but by the time I got home, it was obvious. I immediately went and got her the required drops to clear it up. Per our health unit rules, she has to have been on drops for 24 hours and have no eye goop before returning to school. So someone has to stay home today. At best, she returns tomorrow. We asked everyone, 6 different family and friends. No one is available, so one of us has to stay home. Here are the facts. I work in healthcare, I have a full schedule of patients today. I'm only in this clinic once a week, so rescheduling my day is challenging. There is no one to cover. These patients would have to wait at least another week to see me. He works in a warehouse and delivers building material for contractors, builders, and homeowners. There are deliveries scheduled, but he didn't say anything was urgent. I have sick days and personal days remaining. He does not get sick days, but could move a vacation day. I'm salaried and I'm the breadwinner. He works hourly and will lose a day's pay, but he is working an extra day this week, so it will balance out. He will, however, lose the extra day and the overtime. I've already said that I will stay home tomorrow if needed, even though it would mean rescheduling a bunch more patients. But it's a clinic I'm in 4 days a week, so rescheduling is a lot easier. Am I the jerk for making him take the day off unpaid? Missing info. He assumed I would volunteer to take the day off, and he's upset about having to take the day off. There is also an underlying element of the mother being the default parent here that I'm constantly up against. He's mad about missing out on overtime. I've already committed to taking tomorrow off, and I have already taken 2 other days off when kiddo was sick. He has not. Not the jerk. And also, yours seems more complicated to change, and you're the breadwinner. Also, both of you are the parents. So, not the jerk. He's a parent first and has less urgent work to be done. He should stay home for the day. Am I the jerk for not inviting my parents or sister to my graduation because I didn't want to deal with the disappointment? My parents have always put my sister Cassie first. Cassie did need extra support, as she does have genuine issues with depression and anxiety, but they refused to compromise. It always came at my expense. The final straw was my high school graduation back in 2019. Cassie had a pageant at the same time. The plan was for both of my parents to attend the first half of Cassie's pageant, our mother would stay at Cassie's pageant, and our dad would leave to attend and record my graduation. Before Dad was about to leave, Cassie said she was having anxiety and needed them both there. He texted me to find my own ride home from graduation. I had been hoping that my parents would finally follow through with their promise to be there for me. In the honors sector class photo, I was the only student who didn't have any family members come. I felt awful. My mother, dad, and Cassie were already home when I got back. They had ordered dinner and were celebrating Cassie's pageant. They didn't even seem to remember or care about me and my graduation. My parents tried to act friendly and congratulate me, but I just ignored them. My mother tried hugging me, but I pushed past her. I decided then that I just couldn't depend on them not to disappoint me. My graduation was 3 weeks ago. I didn't even bother reaching out to my mother, dad, or Cassie. I gave my ceremony tickets to 2 friends and donated the rest. My mother and dad reached out to me, saying that they just learned about my ceremony through social media. Neither of them went to college, so they assumed that the college got out at the same time as the local high schools. They asked why I hadn't even asked them. I told them that they've proven that I can't depend on them by always leaving me as a second thought to Cassie. I know she has issues and needs extra support, but they never even tried to compromise, and I didn't want to deal with the disappointment again. My parents told me that they and Cassie were heartbroken that their daughter/sister would disregard them this way. We do have other family members who my parents are much closer with after lockdown. We were not really involved with each other before, which is why they weren't at my graduation and why we didn't go to their kids' graduations. They know both sides of the story, but told me I was a jerk. They said how my parents felt so bad about high school graduation and that I was being selfish and denied my parents the chance to make it right and finally be able to put their guilt behind them. I switched my social media to private to avoid these comments, but now I'm worried that they're right and that I have been selfish and not understanding of Cassie's needs. Am I the jerk? Absolutely 100% not the jerk. Not even close, like not even a bit. Why would you trust people who have consistently let you down and failed to celebrate your achievements? Even if your sister was genuinely having an anxiety attack and your dad decided to stay with her, why didn't they rush from her pageant to pick you up after graduation? Why did they celebrate her pageant? I'm sure it wasn't the only one. Why not wait for you? Why assume that college ended the same time as high school? Why did it not even cross their minds to think, OP's graduating college this year, I wonder when it is? Why did it take seeing something on social media to make them reach out? They aren't heartbroken at all. They're guilt-ridden. I can only assume that they didn't have the excuse of Cassie having an event to cover for them, and they're getting questions from other family members, and they're rapidly doing damage control and trying to pin you as the bad guy. Am I the jerk for blocking your go-to time waster from June 12th to June 14th? For those who have been following along, you know we've been watching the situation closely and engaging Reddit through any avenue available in the hopes to alleviate our concerns and see a potential path forward. One that recognizes that Reddit is ultimately a for-profit entity, but still has a community of users to serve. While we appreciate that some of you are disappointed we didn't jump on the bandwagon early on, we have been careful to ensure we fully understand what we're protesting, to what extent Reddit plans to come to the table, and how they stack up to industry best practices around communication and community management. I know a lot of you have clocked some years in the corporate world. As a large sub, we've had an ongoing relationship with the admins. Admins are not executives, and many of the folks having to deliver the unpopular messages lately are not making the decisions. They're not C-suite. Some may even feel the same way you do about these changes. In a time where tech layoffs are at a high and many are just hoping to keep a roof over their head, please do try to keep your cool and keep feedback respectful and actionable, even if passionate and at times downright angry. Welcome aboard to our newest subscribers, Nikki, Kelly, and the House Ghost. Subscribe to our channel and tick the bell for all notifications, and you could get a shout out in our next video.